Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Homer Montes Garcia. Garcia was stabbed to death on Wednesday, January 1st, 2020 in the 100 block of East 7th Street in downtown LA, according to LA County coroner records. Devin Lampkin was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. Defendant Lampkin began 2020 with a cup of coffee on New Year's Day at a 24-hour Mexican restaurant in downtown LA. Defendant sat at the bar minding his own business for an hour or more. Defendant had been homeless for about 10 years and kept a pocket knife for protection. After drinking his coffee for a while, defendant set his knife on the counter to get it off the side of his waistband. Around that time, victim Homer Garcia came into the restaurant and appeared intoxicated. He sat at the counter about 4 seats away from the defendant and ordered breakfast. After the victim received his food, a woman walked into the restaurant, briefly placed a box near the victim, spat on the floor, and said something to the victim that might have been racist or might have been a request for food. The victim told the woman to leave, and she did. The victim became upset, walked over to the defendant, and said he was unable to have breakfast in peace. Defendant remained seated and told the victim to go back to his seat and eat. Over the next few minutes, the victim and defendant argued, with the victim repeatedly getting up and walking towards defendant, and defendant repeatedly telling the victim to sit down. Defendant said to the victim, "I'm not talking to you. I'm still not talking to you. Go sit down and finish your food." The victim slurred his speech and swerved as he walked towards defendant. At some point during the argument, defendant picked up his knife. Defendant stood up and the victim said, "Sit the fuck down, I'll fuck you up. If you don't sit down, I'll fuck you up in here." Defendant testified he was getting angry because he kept telling the victim to leave him alone, but the victim wouldn't go sit down. Defendant said he was scared and he didn't know if the victim had a weapon. When defendant thought the victim was reaching for something, defendant hugged the victim, stabbed him in the chest with a knife, and pinned him against the counter. Defendant threw the victim to the ground, cleaned his knife, picked up his coffee and cup of ice, and left the restaurant. The restaurant owner called 911 and the victim died at the hospital. A medical examiner determined that defendant forced a knife blade through the victim's ribs and into his heart. The LAPD obtained a photograph of defendant from the restaurant's video surveillance system and provided it to the media. An off-duty officer saw a news story on TV about the stabbing and recognized defendant as a homeless person who frequented the downtown branch of the LA Public Library. The next day, January 3rd, 2020, the officer saw defendant at the library and arrested him. Defendant had shaved his head and beard since the stabbing. Defendant waived his Miranda rights and told detectives the victim got in his face and said he was going to kick defendant's ass and fuck him up. Defendant said he repeatedly told the victim that he didn't want to talk to him, but the victim continued to threaten him and defendant said he couldn't take no more. Defendant wasn't trying to hurt anybody. Defendant said he stabbed the victim only once because he was trying to get the victim to back up off him. Defendant said that when the victim fell, defendant panicked, picked up his stuff, and left. The people charged defendant with first-degree murder and alleged that defendant personally used a deadly or dangerous weapon in committing the murder, that he had a prior conviction for a serious or violent felony within the meaning of the Three Strikes Law. Following the trial, the jury acquitted defendant of first-degree murder and convicted him of second-degree murder and found true the allegation that he used a deadly or dangerous weapon in committing the murder. The court sentenced defendant to a prison term of 31 years to life, 15 years to life doubled under the Three Strikes Law, plus 1 year for using a deadly or dangerous weapon. Homer Montes Garcia was 56 years old at the time of death.